Hello, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the last presentation of the day. I hope you found it useful. So we've had basically a guided tour to current developments in remote sensing, looking at some of the practical uses, looking at some of the new technological advances. Today, we're going to look at the work that NASA is doing with its SERVIR project, and particularly sort of focusing on some on-the-ground work and a case study that will be presented by Emil Charrington, who works for SERVIR as in the Science Coordination Office, and has kindly agreed to help us today, and is happy to answer questions at the end of this session as well. So feel free to file your questions in the chat section or the Q&A section, and we can put those questions to Emil at the end of his presentation. With that said, I'm going to hand over to Emil now. Emil, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gwyn, and thank you to Verisian for the opportunity to present here today to colleagues from across the globe. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. I'd just like to say first off that my presentation is a redux of a presentation earlier given by other colleagues of mine from the Severe Science Coordination Office, as well as some slides that were shared with us from one of our Severe Applied Science team principal investigators. So without further ado, I'll just jump into it. But again, my name is Emil Charrington, and I work for the Science Coordination Office of SERVIR, which is based at the NASA Marshall Space Flight Center here in Huntsville, Alabama. And so, first off, you probably, if you haven't heard about SERVIR, you're wondering who or what is SERVIR. And SERVIR is a partnership between NASA and USAID. So essentially one of the space agencies of the US government, as well as an international development agency as part of that government. And SERVIR, in addition to this partnership between NASA and USAID, it also involves leading centers of excellence in the areas of Earth observation and geospatial information technology from 5 regions in the world. In Amazonia, we are working with a consortium that's led by SEAT. In West Africa, we're working with a consortium led by SILS Agromet. In Eastern and Southern Africa, we're working with RCMRD. In the Hindu Kush Himalaya region, we're working with ICIMOD, and in the Mekong region, we're working with ADPC. And in addition to these regional centers and NASA and USAID, SERVIR also involves other partners, including researchers from US universities and research centers, which form what we call the SERVIR Applied Sciences team, which is a part of a broader NASA solicitation. And in addition to that, we've partnered with different private sector entities such as Google, Amazon Web Services, Esri, Maxar, Mapbox, Development Seed, and Planet, as well as with different agencies of the UN, etc. But the idea being that collaboration is really what SERVIR is about. And our motto is connecting space to village, with the idea being taking Earth observations and leveraging them for addressing development challenges. And so one thing to know about SERVIR is that in our program of work, we have 4 thematic areas. We focus on agriculture and food security. We focus on land cover and ecosystems. We focus on weather and climate. However, we also focus on water and related disasters. And this presentation today is really going to focus on the water and related disasters thematic area. And more specifically, I'll be talking about work that we're doing across the globe in partnership again with these 5 regional centers, and specifically geospatial services that we're implementing. And so when I talk about services, it's to kind of differentiate a service from, say, a one-off pilot study or a project. And so with that, I'll start you off, well, first off to talk about how this work that SERVIR which SERVIR is doing in water really focuses in on the global water strategy, which is a part of USAID's work. And that global water strategy focuses on increasing access to drinking water, protecting freshwater resources, promoting cooperation on shared resources, and strengthening water governance and financing. And specifically, SERVIR's work focuses, in that context, focuses on water resource management, monitoring of water quality, as well as focusing on water resources and extreme events such as floods. In addition to that, we have a cross-cutting area, which is gender and social inclusion. And I'll also be highlighting how some of these services are also addressing gender and social inclusion. So with that, I'll start off with one service that we're implementing in East Africa, again, with our partners at the Regional Center for Mapping of Resources for Development, RCMRD, which is based in Nairobi, Kenya. And their service focuses on something called DRIP, the Drought Resilience Impact Platform, which in support of work that USAID is doing in monitoring water resources for the 3 million people who live in West Africa. That work has to do with using electronic sensors for looking at groundwater resources or boreholes, wells. And this work that's being done there, we can see that the different sites across parts of East Africa in the map on the bottom right, and also just in the different work areas that SERVIR focuses on. We have something called theories of change, and that's a part of something broader called service planning. And again, as I mentioned before, where the idea of service planning is to focus on these long-term services instead of one-off projects that can be done. This whole idea of if we work on things like drought, monitoring of droughts and monitoring of groundwater, that's something that will eventually contribute to water security in these water insecure regions. And so that's one example. And the example presented there dovetails pretty nicely with work that's being done in West Africa by a different project team. But that work in West Africa now focuses on taking NASA satellite data from a NASA mission called the GRACE follow-on. GRACE has to do with essentially monitoring Earth's gravitational field. And based on that gravity-related data, they're able to tell when groundwater resources are being depleted. And so we have a team led by some professors at Brigham Young University who have basically put together a platform for combining these, again, NASA satellite data with measurements from the field provided, for instance, by the Hydrologic Resource Ministry of Niger, working in coordination with a partner in the region, SILS Agromet. And again, taking that data and how do you visualize that and provide that to stakeholders at the ministry level to get a better idea of how groundwater resources are being used, depleted, etc. And another similar example, but now going back to East Africa, this was a partnership with Oklahoma University with a team that developed a model called EF5 that has to do with doing hydrological modeling, water balances, for looking again just at overall water balances in Uganda and other parts of East Africa. And the idea being, with the previous example, we've seen how you can use satellite data from NASA. However, there are also these models which leverage satellite data and leverage in situ resources, again, to provide information to stakeholders who otherwise, without these models or without these satellite data, they might not have a good hold as to what's happening with different watersheds. And so that being another example of how SERVIR is working in East Africa for looking at water resources. And taking a step back and now looking at a more global scale, this one is called the GeoGLO's ECMWF Streamflow Service. And this one is implemented by a SERVIR applied science team principal investigator, Professor Jim Nelson at Brigham Young University. And this is a platform that he developed partly using resources from SERVIR, but also leveraging the ECMWF models from Europe. And one of the things to note there, as kind of shown here in this graphic in the top left, is with ECMWF, they get an ensemble or a set of different models, and as indicated there, for instance, with their forecast, there are 51 different model components that go into it. And then based off of what these 51 different models are indicating, they're able to combine that data set with hydrological modeling for, again, areas across the globe to get an idea into the future of sections of rivers which might flood. And so, for instance, in this example here, we're looking all the way into Sunday, and we're seeing, parts of the Amazon River that might, flood, based again on comparing the forecast with the historical norm. Parts of Canada, I think parts of the U.S. Going into the Gulf of Mexico, etc. And again, just one system that again combines satellite-based and other types of data, and it's also been downscaled, or they've made national instances. For instance, like this version where they've collaborated with the government of Peru, Tsunami, to generate that example. And again, you're able to check out those links there. And also, one of the neat things about this, last year when hurricanes Iota and Eta passed over different parts of Central America, Jim Nelson and team also provided support to the governments of Honduras, Nicaragua, and others in how to use these tools to look at areas that were potentially at risk of flooding. Another example, and another cool one at that, is again SERVIR leveraging other data resources. In this case, leveraging not only Landsat 8 from the U.S. Geological Survey and NASA, but also data from Copernicus, from the Sentinel-2 satellite. In this case, we're looking at ephemeral water bodies. These are water bodies which dry up in the dry season, but they're flush with water in the wet season. And there are communities of pastoralists who are migratory, and as they migrate around, they go to different watering holes to provide sustenance to their flocks, as you can see here in the bottom. And again, with satellite data, working with partners like CSE in Senegal and Agromed in Niger, providing that data on a regular basis to different groups of people, including veterinarians without borders, who then pass on that data to pastoralist communities. And again, just highlighting the really interesting things which are possible today using different types of satellite data coming from sources, whether it's the Europeans and Copernicus, or from the US, from NASA and the US Geological Survey. And going further east in the Mekong, this is an example of a system that was developed by our partner ADPC, the Asian Disaster Preparedness Center, in support of the Mekong River Commission, looking at, again, taking satellite data and able to forecast, when drought is occurring, and again, provide that data to this commission, which spans multiple governments. And here you have an example of the kind of bulletins that our partners, ADPC, are putting out to support the Mekong River Commission, which, you get a bulletin. It goes along as well with mapped data to give an idea of, what parts of the Mekong River might be experiencing drought and how that would affect crops. Moving along, other kind of things. So in addition to being able to look at water body extents, we can also, take satellite data and look at water quality. And so in this case over here on the left, we have a viewer that was developed with RCMRD in Kenya for looking at Lake Victoria, which is this large freshwater body lake that spans multiple countries in East Africa. Again, taking this satellite-based data to be able to get an idea of when they're having water quality events. For instance, in this case, when chlorophyll A is high, which might indicate in this case that they're having issues with water hyacinth, which is an invasive species that covers the lake. And then taking that experience and then transferring that over to other parts of the world, like over here we can see the example of Lake Atitlan in Guatemala, in Central America, and again taking that same kind of technology, being able to upscale or replicate that, and again being able to look, for instance, in this case, at harmful algal blooms. And that is from a project led by a colleague of mine, Africa Flores, from our SERVIR Science Coordination Office. And it was a project funded by National Geographic and Microsoft. Another example, again, looking at water pollution. This example that we're looking at here, we're looking at the impact of mining activities on water quality in the Peruvian Amazon, an area called Madre de Dios that is very biodiverse. But again, similar concept where using water quality data from satellites, being able to see when water is becoming more turbid because of mining activities. And this is a similar approach to what's been implemented in Ghana by SERVIR partner SERVIR, which is a remote sensing center based in Ghana, where in the case of Sturgis, they're looking at galamsey, which is also illegal or illicit gold mining occurring there in that world. And again, these things just generally showing how one technology which is implemented in one part of the world. You can take something that was implemented in Lake Victoria in East Africa and implement a similar solution in Central America, or you can take something that's happened, something from West Africa and implement it in the. And just to say in general, other types of things besides water quality that SERVIR has looked at has to do with flood risk reduction in how it impacts water and sanitation and health. And so, just a few small examples where there's SERVIR tools also looking at, water extents caused by flooding, looking at transboundary floods, generation of near real-time flood alerts also in areas like Nepal, Bangladesh, Kenya. And one of the things that another colleague of mine, Kel Markert and colleagues developed is a system called that leverages, again, data from Sentinel-1 from Copernicus for being able to see through the clouds and look at flood conditions caused, when you have a lot of cloudiness, the satellites, the radar satellites are able to see through the clouds. And in this case, you're able to map flooding. However, able to leverage when the images are cloud-free, data from VIIRS, from NOAA, from NASA, MODIS from NASA, Landsat 8 from NASA, Sentinel-2 from Copernicus, and again, looking at a fusion approach, which is kind of similar to some of the things that we saw in some of the earlier presentations today by the colleagues from the different agencies like the WMO and others. And then, similar to what was mentioned before, one thing to mention is that, satellites provide a synoptic perspective. Observations, the way how satellites are built, they see broad areas that cover, large swaths. And so one lesson learned from our work with SERVIR is that, in some cases where, countries might be reluctant to share data, that's has not been an obstacle in general with open data provided by, systems like from NASA or Copernicus, et cetera. And so this has allowed, groups like the Mekong River Commission to kind of see synoptically, what's occurring, or in the case of Bangladesh, being able to prepare for floods, that are being triggered or occurring upstream of them. And then starting to wrap up, just to say, also one of the roles that SERVIR has, not just implementing these services with our partners, also serving as a repository of different types of data sets. And so, for instance, in-house, we developed a platform called ClimateServe, as it shows there, where climate data lives, and has provided a simple way for anybody in the globe to look up data sets related to climate and weather, including things like CHIRPS rainfall data that are generated by the University of California, Santa Barbara, CHIRPS, and that's historical rainfall data, GEFS data, which is merging of CHIRPS with global forecast data from NOAA, and then other types of longer, more seasonal forecast data, as well as SERVIR also works with other related data sets that are important for looking at water resource monitoring, like digital elevation models, and that's definitely something that you also heard in some of the previous sessions. And so, in summary, just to say that the work that we're doing with SERVIR in the water portfolio is very broad, and of course, depending on what the hydromet agencies on this call, on this webinar are doing, those might be things that are interesting to you. And so, as mentioned, we have services looking at groundwater modeling using satellite and other types of resources, looking at surface monitoring, again, using satellite data and hydrological models, looking at water quality. So again, seeing the ultimate impacts of things like fertilizers and gold minings and, leaching of heavy metals, and also things like flood monitoring, monitoring, forecasting of floods, mitigation and preparedness. And then over here on the right, it just kind of shows you how, again, with SERVIR being a partnership between NASA and USAID, how this work also fits into portfolios like that of USAID. And so with that, I've come to the end of the presentation. And just to say, if you'd like further information on what we're doing, please check out our website, our portal, servirglobal.net. And also, we post a lot on social media. So feel free to follow us at Servir Global on Twitter. And we're also in the process of setting up an Instagram as well. We also so with that, I think I can basically stop the presentation and open it up for any kind of questions or comments that might have come up in the chat. So thank you.
Thanks, Emil. That was great. We have got a minute or so left. If anybody has anything to add or if anybody has any questions, feel free to use the chat function or the Q&A function. If not, I just wanted to say that Emil's presentation and all the presentations from today will be available on demand, probably from later on this afternoon, but certainly from tomorrow morning. All the participants will receive an email from us with a direct link to all of the content. To Neil Hendy, thank you for that comment. Great work being done by SERVIR. So well done, Emil. Thanks to Neil for turning up today. It's good to see you again. And so yeah, that's it. So tomorrow, all of you
by the way,
receive.
Hi to Neil all the way in Belize.
You know each other. That's good. That's good.
We're compatriots.
Ah, right. Of course. Glad we can reunite you on the Hydromet network. So from tomorrow, all this will be available. We'll email everybody as well, so you can access it via a direct link. Next week, we're back to our webinar format. So we have 45 minutes on Thursday. We'll email you the current questions, the current content, and feel free to attend again. And then we have some big developments going on at the moment. So over the next couple of weeks, all of the members here today, and those who can't be here today will all receive regular updates as well. So with that said, thank you for attending today. Thank you to all the sponsors. There is still time left for all of you to visit the lounge or visit the remote sensing experts in their booths. But thank you very much for attending, and thank you to Emil for that final presentation. That was great, and hopefully see you all soon. Thank you, Emil. Bye-bye.
Glenn, thank you very soon.